Bleach Bros Podcast is proud to align itself with Jerky Pro, a beef jerky manufacturer established by military and paramilitary veterans.
Available in 3-ounce or 1-pound bags with great flavors such as honey glazed, teriyaki, red hot, apple cinnamon, original, peppered, sweet barbecue, and if you're ballsy enough, nuclear.
Be sure to use our promo code to get some of the best jerky on the market. Use Bleach Bros 5, all lowercase, to take advantage of this offer today.
What's up, Salty Hippo Nation? This is Aaron from the I Had to Say It podcast, and you are listening to the Bleach Bros Podcast with B-Word and Jake. Stick around for the dirty talk, and don't forget to get sanitized.
Welcome into the Bleach Brothers Podcast. This is B-Word, and as usual, I am here with my good buddy, Jake. How you doing, bud?
Good, B-Word. Let's get into good buddy stuff.
Let's get into good buddy stuff.
Friendship is about long-term ability and being able to go through things, right?
Long-term
so
ability.
So if we can get into this. Before the show, and not just because I'm the hater. I think out of us two, I'm more of an asshole than you. I think we have asshole tendencies each. But yeah, I went off a little bit, right? And like we've talked about on other shows and in real life and everything that we're like brothers, and we are. We've been friends for over 30 years. And the one thing that people need to realize in life is that friendships are built over everything. Like, one problem I have is that people block each other.
Yeah.
Or if you don't like what they say, you give up. Now I will commend you on this. You put up with me with a lot of shit, right? I put up with you with some shit, but not as much. And I commend you for that. You have bigger shoulders than me.
It's because I'm fat.
Front. You got bigger legs. You can squat more. But no, it's the point though that you have to evaluate the end result. Like, we are great together. Not just on this show. I know when fans talk to me and they say, I love the camaraderie, I love the chemistry, I love that. That is built over years of friendship. And people need to realize that you will fight, that you will not get along, that moments will occur. One of you might be Kanye, that's usually me, to go nuts. But like it's like my marriage, right? And I'm not going to be that person that says, only things that you work at are worth it. No, that's not true. There are things that you don't have to work at all. Like, I love betting. Sometimes I don't have to do shit. I make money. It's fucking great.
Right.
But you still have to work at things. Like, I have to work at my marriage, right? We have to work on our relationship. We have to work together for this show. Like, do you like this? Do you like that? How's it going to go? What time are we getting on? There have been times that we've jumped on the mic and you're not in the mood, or I'm not in the mood, or, let's get each other going in the sense to make the episode as good as we can. Like, I've commended you that you're an amazing number one, right? And I wish in this media sense I was a number one. I know I'm not. One thing I've talked about is it's good to know who you are or what you are. Like, I love sluts, not just because they're sluts, but I like that they know what they are.
I like sluts too.
Right.
I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah. And I like assholes because you know what? They know they're an asshole. I like people that just say, this is me, and accept me. And you might not like anything about me. And if you go through life thinking you should get along with everybody, or, but that's a mistake. But two, if you should only get along with people like you, that's a mistake.
Right.
I'm not saying go make a friend with the demagnetization of like, oh, you're a negative and I'm a positive. Let's try to be friends and make this work. But friendship is work.
Yeah.
And tonight was one of those moments where I've had a hard time with work. I've had a hard time with a few things, and you've always had my back. And the funny thing was, it was all due to the smallest misunderstanding, in the sense of you were looking for something, and I can achieve that something you're looking for. But in my eyes, it was like you wanted it then, and I was like, you can get it then or another time. And you were like, no, I don't care if I get it then. But me, I'm like, fuck you, fuck you. there was a lot of fuck yous, some hang-ups,
a lot of suck
yelling.
my dicks.
Oh, well, that's always everything. It's funny. I was talking to you the other day, and you're like, of course. Like I was complaining about something else. You're like, of course, you probably yelled out, "Suck my dick," because that's my go-to. Suck my dick when I'm pissed off. But no. I want to thank you. I truly do. Like, as a friend, you have been one of the greatest friends I've ever had.
I appreciate that, buddy. You hold your weight in this relationship too, and I'm not just saying that because you're complimenting me, or appreciating me verbally here. But I do think that I've managed some businesses before. I'm a business major. I understand what teams look like. I've played competitive sports. People have to hold their weight, right? And sometimes the best teams are where people offset each other with their strengths. And so for me, I'm not as much of an analytical person as I probably come across to be. I do like to drift off and watch the butterflies every once in a while because, ADD or whatever it's called. But one of the things that we try to do is in order to put out the product that we're putting out, we've got to be organized, but we also have lives outside of this podcast, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're getting ready to go on vacation. And I wish you an amazing vacation. Wish I was going with you. But yeah, I mean, this just happens. But the one thing that I will say is, unlike, some other podcasts that are out there, we also don't hang up the cleats when things get hard either. Like we're always just about making sure that we bury the hatchet or whatever. And for those who are kind of concerned about maybe this conversation that we're having, like Jake and I are good friends. We've been friends for 30 years. Like sometimes we'll say things that the other doesn't like and then we're just over it. But we're still good friends and we still are business partners and we're still, doing the damn thing. And so, yeah, I mean, totally fine. We moved through it. We're getting through it, but your wife is the smartest of the bunch. I'm just going to say that.
I made dinner. I came home and she was just like, what happened? So I was explaining, right? No, not just the work stuff. I explained everything, but then I told her about me and you. And then she goes, let me read the text thread. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And it's not one of those moments where it's like, oh, I'm handing my phone and she's going to go through, because I have nothing to hide, that. But it was the fact that I was like, fuck, she's going to see that I'm an asshole. Because I know me, viewer. I know this shit. One, there's a lot of clerical errors. I write ducking more than fucking. And my excuse is I hate the Oregon Ducks, so that's why it's offensive to me.
Right.
That doesn't hold water. But she read it. She goes, yeah, you're wrong. And I went, no. And I thought about it. Then I called you, and then we had a normal, cordial conversation.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. And then here's the thing. And mind you had a moment you were wrong, but majority of the blame is on me, and I get that.
Well, what I love about this though is that you called me, and so when we call each other, I'm normally like yelling, like it's especially pooping. But if we're not pooping, we're typically driving in the car, and especially if we get one or the other's voicemail, we're usually yelling our voicemail message at the top of our lungs with mass profanities and probably some vulgar racist type things that we're not going to repeat on here. Right. Well, maybe not racist, but definitely offensive.
Vulgar things.
Yeah. Not racist. Let's clear that up. And so that's what happened today. You called me and I missed your call. So I'm leaving work. I call you and immediately get your voicemail. And I'm like, this motherfucker, he called me. And so the first thing I do is I yell at you, Jake, you're such a homo, blah, 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 blah.
Pride flag it.
And then I hang up the phone and I go and I get groceries and I'm going about my day, dude, just like an old dude driving his favorite car, just having a good time. And pick up my groceries. We're texting back and forth for some Patreon stuff. And then next thing I know, we're talking on the phone and I'm trying to put groceries away. So of course I answer the phone like, what the fuck do you want? That probably wasn't the right tone. And next thing I know, Jake and I are going at it and we're yelling back and forth. And it was funny too, because I think that both of us saw the irony in it, where it's just like, we're yelling at each other and I'm sure you wanted to yell at me in that moment, but I'm just going like, why are we yelling?
Well, there was a moment in the middle of it. I thought three things. I thought, one, fuck you, you're wrong. Two, I thought suck my dick. But no, it was the fact that I'm like, oh, I should probably stop. But then, sometimes when the train's going,
yeah.
You're like, if I pull the brakes, I have to go back to 8 stops and try to figure that out.
Toot toot, motherfucker.
and then the final one though was this. It was like, you know what I'm gonna do? When I get home, I'm going to text him, I'm done. And then I'm thinking, no, I'm not done. Because I will say this. I will say a profound moment we had, B-word, is that we said if we were ever going to quit this show, right? And it wasn't like the thing, like if it's not fun anymore. I mean, that's true. But if me and you felt like there was just nothing more that we were going to do for this show, it was like, we're just going to hang them up in the night.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be one day you just look up and we're bottom of the lineup. And you're like, where did they go?
No shit.
Rest in peace, Wilberts. I love you, but where the fuck did they go?
Will doesn't listen to this. Neither does.
No, but that's why I can. Yeah.
But yeah, that's where it's at. But we're obviously not hanging up the cleats. We're not calling it quits, and we're still putting out an episode. And we have a fun rundown for tonight. So we're gonna get out of this melancholy bullshit, and we're moving on to our next topic here. So before we actually get into this, I did want to talk with you about this. I don't think that you have, but did you watch that Everything Everywhere All the Time or whatever that movie is?
What the hell are you?
The one that I texted you.
No. The one that you. Oh, okay. Hold on. Don't just say the weirdest name ever for a movie. Preface with, you texted me all night.
Oh, I did too.
Repeatedly.
I did.
Like, oh my God, you have to watch this. Oh my God, it's like this. Oh my, and here's my favorite part. It's like Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon, which means you admit how fucking great that movie is.
If Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon had English or English subtitles, because I don't remember that there were English subtitles.
There always is. Yes, there was, but
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, if it was dubbed, let's put it that way, it'd be great. But no, so I ended up watching this movie. I just want to talk about it real quick. Not a whole lot of people have seen it, and it's definitely worth the watch. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once. I watched it on Showtime. You can watch it on a few different places. But if you are into martial arts, like Jake's Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon film, if you're into multiverse shit, like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and if you're into some comedy and some foreign films, you're totally going to love this. And if you don't, blame Jake that he didn't watch it. So, but yeah, I wanted to see if you watched it because we haven't had a chance to talk about that. But I do recommend watching that to our fans.
And to our fans, if you have watched this or you do watch this, please go on our Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, and just blow B-Word's Messenger up, because he's the one that usually responds to you too. It'll annoy the shit out of him, like it did me that one night when I was trying to bang my wife. Just being upfront. That's what was happening. Everything else was always everywhere inside that.
That's right.
Whatever.
That's right. So my understanding is, dude, and we have a rundown here. Rundown's pretty packed, but you have a game that I didn't need to prepare for. Am I correct?
So and I'm going to preface it with this. So we've done the theory of two.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I love one of my favorite theories in life. It's very compelling. People like it. It's true. And for the basic term of it, ants versus bug life.
Right.
Came out around the same time. Two movies, both CGI, both about ants and bugs and whatever. And people like one more than the other, and vice versa. Right. So what I wanted to do is ask you some rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire.
Okay. So rapid fire with Jake. First take.
Okay.
That's it. You give me an answer, and then we're going to evaluate them afterwards. So instead of me asking like one and you answer and we talk about it, I'm going to fly through these, and some are going to they're going to get harder as we go, in my opinion. Okay. I don't think you're going to like some of them, and I don't care. But I'm going to ask you, and I just want you to name off the first one in your mind, and it's sort of like theory of two, and I'll explain. The first one I'm going to ask is the reason this came up, but let's get into it. Jim Rome versus Colin Cowherd.
Yeah, okay, we talked about this. I don't like either one of them, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Jim Rome.
Okay. Spearmint or peppermint?
Peppermint.
Mario Kart or Mario Party?
Mario Kart.
Butt or boobs?
Butt.
What? Dark or light beer?
Dark.
Bath or shower?
Shower.
Top Gun OG or the new one?
Top Gun OG.
Iron Man or Captain America?
Iron Man.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Pink Ranger or Kelly Kapowski?
Pink Ranger.
Dak or Romo?
Dak. 100%.
And Dads or Dayquill or Happy Hour Podcast?
Dad's on
Or
Dayquill.
the new name. Okay.
Sorry, Mike Tabby.
So it's even now what the Gray's Tap Room. Sorry,
yeah, the Gray's Tap Room.
Name. So you can get a default for that because I said the old name. And the reason was I wanted to go through this because the people could do this, right? You can say rapid fire what you like. And The funny thing is we agree, like I marked all yours down and we agree on almost all of these, which is funny.
You probably picked Romo, didn't you?
I picked Dak.
Okay.
And my favorite reason is when I was writing this out, my wife asked who Romo was. And then I showed her and she goes, that's a fucking caricature in real life.
He is too.
She said he doesn't look like a real human being.
He doesn't. His face looks weird.
Everything looks weird. And the older he gets, the weirder it gets because his ears keep getting bigger. His dimples keep getting bigger. So does his nose.
Yeah.
But no. And like we disagreed on dark versus light beer. I'd go with light. I'd go with bath over shower. I love laying around. I was surprised you said butt over boobs because.
So I like boobies and subies, but I'm an ass man.
Okay.
Now, if you would have said boobies or subies, I'd have picked subies.
All right. But so you're a side boob over an under boob?
100%. 100%. Really? Yeah. No, side boob is like the most amazing thing.
I agree with you because under boob is for fake tits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Under boob is not for real tits.
And under boob, you normally see the scar. And that's like, if you have a scar, if you've gotten your tits done or whatever, like I'm not going to judge you for it, but I would much rather see the side of your tit than the under of your tit.
So before we get into this, I'll say mine was Cowherd, Peppermint, Mario Kart, butt, light, bath, OG Top Gun, Iron Man, Pink Ranger, Dak, Batman, and Dads. And no offense to Mike and Debbie, but those are my picks, right? And so we almost agreed on everything but two. The funny thing was, or three. The funny thing was though, when this conversation started, you were not a fan of Jim Rome.
No.
But you're also not a fan of Cowherd.
No.
But Jim Rome to me is like the epitome of a sports douche.
No. The epitome of a sports douche is Skip Bayless.
Okay, but all right, if we're comparing these two, and the reason is Cowherd might not give the greatest opinions, but he has an opinion that he'll talk about, and he might be pompous about it. The different with Rome though, Rome's the drunk guy who talks in cadence like he's almost trying to be an Eminem rapper at you, like this dude right here, he is here and he is talking, and that's the dude, that dude is who I'm talking about, and his name is that dude. And that's what bothers me about Rome. Like I used to love Rome is Burning, and I like watching him, but it gets to a point after 10 minutes, I'm like, you're like a 15-minute YouTube video that just needed 2.
Right.
Like, give me a snippet, I'm happy. Give me a whole hour, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Well, and so do you think that part of your Cowherd over Rome comes from where you live?
No, because I had no idea Cowherd was originally from here.
Okay.
I just was a big fan of the herd because I really liked his takes before he got even as big as he is. I think he's the epitome of a sportscaster that, okay, so the difference between Rome and Cowherd is this. Cowherd changed with the money.
Yep.
Rome stayed the same with the money. Rome has always been the same. And that's my problem.
That's why I chose Rome. Yeah, no, it's funny, dude, because sportscasters, like, I didn't realize where you were going with this, where you said we had a game, but because we were actually talking about Cowherd and Rome, because you introduced your brother to Rome, and I was telling you, man, I just can't stand Rome. He reminds me of Cowherd, and you're like, well, this is where we're going. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I didn't realize we were doing Theory 2 as sportscasters, but no, good questions. So, do you prefer an NES or a Sega?
Sega.
Do you prefer a GameCube or a Wii?
GameCube.
GameCube. Okay. Do you prefer an Xbox or a PlayStation?
PlayStation. I don't let anybody play with my box.
Do you prefer a Game Boy or a Sony PlayStation handheld, whatever that's called?
Game Boy.
Game Boy. Okay. What about PC or a game system?
PC.
You're a PC guy?
Oh, all day, dude. I'd rather play on a mouse with hotkeys, and games are better. That was before downloadable games. When you had consoles back in the day with our age, right? You had to buy a new game or whatever.
Right.
And PCs were always evolving. There was more online play and all that, and everything's caught up. However, there is something to be said. I love PC gaming. It's way more fun, in my opinion. There's a lot more to it. It takes more skill for certain things. Because I mean, you're doing it instead of one controller. I mean, there are PC games that don't translate well, and vice versa. There's console games that don't translate well to PC. But I love PC gameplay.
Okay, I've never played on a PC, so I really can't speak to that. But that also brings up something that I've done that you haven't. I've also played The Last of Us, which by far is one of my favorite games. I really enjoyed the storyline. Probably this one and Star Wars Fallen Order would probably be the 2 games that I absolutely love that I've played from beginning to end, and I love them specifically for the storyline. But recently, HBO came out with The Last of Us in a series. And I've kind of been looking forward to this just because I want to see how the game translates onto the big screen. And we both had the opportunity to watch it this weekend. And so from somebody who has not played the game, I kind of want to get your take on this to try to figure out where you're at with it, what your initial opinion is of it, and kind of go from there.
So a few points. Great acting, great cast. HBO is one of those channels now, like if Netflix comes out with a big show, it's almost hit or miss now because they put enough money behind things, but they also, I don't know, it's hard to place it right. Like Disney, if they do, there's a quality that comes with Disney, but also a feel. Okay. If that makes sense. Like how they go about it. HBO is like, you can kill the main character in the first episode. You cannot, you can have it go on for 10 seasons, one season. But the production will be there, and they really put their all into it. It always feels like. Okay. The one problem I had with the show going into it is I love post-apocalyptic. I love shit that ends on a down note. I love the underworld. I hate zombies though. I just think it's an overdone thing. But when they opened up, and I know it's not in the game, but when they opened up with the fungi scene and they were explaining that was one of the coolest moments. It reminds me of the movie Prometheus, and I don't know if you know this, they cut out a TED Talk in the beginning of that movie.
No, I didn't know that. So
if you ever want to see something really fucking cool, go look up the TED Talk for Prometheus, and it makes the movie that much fucking better. Okay. Because it describes what their mission is, right? Like in the sense of like what Yutani wants to do, right? Okay. Or Wayland Yutani. So that was a problem going into the show. The other problem I had, though, is it was one of the best video game adaptations I've seen. However, I could tell it was based on a video game in the sense like when they were driving in the car, it felt like the video game. And I know they're trying to do almost a shot for shot and make it similar, but it reminded me of cutscenes in video games. And I think this is why video games make terrible movies or shows. It's the fact that you get a really good snippet, a really good storyline, but then you play the rest of it out, almost like a choose your own adventure book. And so all I was imagining after that truck scene and they got out, it was just a guy standing there like this, and what I'm doing for the fans sitting there is like I'm waving back and forth like the player waiting for you to move him, and that's what I felt was going to happen. Where I was like, okay, the cutscene's over, let's get back to me playing, and then let's do another cutscene, and that made it very choppy and a little hard to watch in the sense of I could tell the scenes. As somebody who didn't play, and tell me if I'm wrong, I could tell the scenes if we sat down together and watched it. I could probably name you the ones that were from the video game, and then the extra writing. And it's very easy to see.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So for me, I played the game. I swore by this game. This game was phenomenal. If you're looking for a one-person adventure style game that you are just going out and following a storyline, this one is fantastic. The Last of Us Part 1. Full disclosure, I've not played Part 2, so that might be great. I imagine should the HBO series become successful or stay successful, that they'll probably get into that. So I might actually have to pick that up and play it. But such a great storyline, the video game it was. I spent a lot of time actually just trying to get all the side quests and everything done so that way I could just consume as much of this as I could. It was a really, really fun game. It was not open world. So sometimes I like open world like a Grand Theft Auto or something of that nature, just so that way I can go explore. Whereas this one was not that. It was very much to the story. It had a point to make. It had a story to tell. Relating that to the HBO series, you're right, Jake. It was very much, there were several scenes that were, cut right out of the video game. Specifically like when they go up to the intersection, you've got all those street signs, you got the house on fire. That was identical to the game. The way that, the way that his daughter died, that was basically identical to the game. The whole watch scene, that was identical to the game for the most part. 90% of it was. I guess I expected that. I just didn't expect that it would be shot for shot on the screen, if that makes sense. And I was kind of expecting a little bit more that way. So I guess for me, for somebody who's played the game, I found myself a tad disappointed. Like I still think it's a high quality show, but I found it a tad disappointed because aside from the intro with the scientists where they're talking about the disease, I didn't really feel like they added any fillers into it to try to give any more character or bulk up the storyline. And being that I already know how it started, I know how it ended, I did all those side quests within it, I feel like I'm just playing the video game again. And candidly, that's something that's just kind of turning me off, if that makes sense.
Well, this gets back into that argument we've had with past guests and just ourselves in the sense of like comic books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want them to be super accurate?
Right.
Or do we want them to develop another story? And I can actually give you a counter argument with video games. Usually video games are getting better.
Yes.
We know that the storylines are getting deeper. There's a lot to it. If there's a lot of cut scenes, it's like, do you just keep those the same and put them in the movie for fan service, but also like, this is what happened? Or do you try to make it original? Because it's a lose-lose. Right. If you don't do that, you're like, well, that didn't. It's like when you read a book, right? Like, that didn't happen in the video game. That house wasn't on fire. It was this. But if they do it, you're like, well, I wish they wouldn't have shown me what I've already seen. And so for them, it's hard.
Yeah, I think I would have kind of just wanted something in between each of the scenes, I guess, because you're looking at the scene like where he's driving. I think it's downtown Austin, if I remember right, in the video game, and I don't know that it's said in the television series, but where they're driving through the town and the planes crash and everything. I mean, that was right all out of the video game. I mean, it was damn near scene for scene, and so. I mean, I knew everything that was going to happen there. I guess this might be a better experience for somebody who hasn't watched it, number one. But number two, or not played the game, sorry, number one. But number two, I think it's probably, again, just I felt like the transition from scene to scene was very much a video game style transition and not like a transition in a series that you would see on a Game of Thrones or on a, whatever other Quest type television series you're gonna find there. And I think I guess I was just looking for like a little bit more padding on the outside of those scenes where there was some additional story arcs. I know that this may have pissed some people off, but it did a 20-year jump, right? Same thing that it did in the video games. Maybe in episode 1, maybe you just explore that. Like, you don't have to have the whole series on that. But maybe
you have that in between.
Right. You just kind of explain what happened within that 20 years. And maybe you do a couple scenes 5 years out, a couple scenes 10 years out, and then you go a couple scenes, 15 years out, and then you do it. But the way that episode 1 ended was kind of the way that the first act ended in the video game. And it was if you're watching it, it was very much, on your heels the whole time trying to figure out where it's going if you've never watched this before. But I just kind of figured that they would try to pad some of that in there, if that makes sense.
One point on that I'll make before I get into what I was going to say is if you leave that 20-year gap alone, right, that gives you a chance for what Hollywood will do is if this show's successful, then you have that spin-off series of what happened between the 20 years. Like, what was it? Remember we had The Walking Dead and then Fear the Walking Dead?
Yeah.
I will say this. One of my favorite people on the planet is my wife. We know that. But one of my favorite people's opinions is my wife because we could not be more different.
Right.
Like watching her watch football is fucking hilarious. Watching her watch this show because she never plays video games either was great because she thought it was great. And then she asked me and I was explaining, she goes, oh, okay. And I'm thinking, because to me, like you were saying, like if you never played the video game, there were things I didn't know. And it was exciting to see that. Mm-hmm. However, I was like, that's a video game moment. That's not. That's a video game moment. That's written. And there were times it was like almost like watching 3 shows. I don't know if you ever watched Falling Skies on HBO. That's there.
I've seen a couple episodes. Okay. Yeah.
There are parts of that show that are so stellar and beautiful and beautifully written. And then there are the parts that it's like, oh, this reminds me of Sequest. That show, like so badly sci-fi done. There were moments in this show that did that. Mind you, they are very few. But there were moments where it was forced or you were really trying to like upplay something. Like once the Firefly people came in or whatever, the jitter light bugs, whatever you want to call them.
They're fireflies,
I was just like, but I was just like, ugh. Like, okay, now it's getting over the top.
Well, and the Fireflies are a big story within the video game. And candidly, I mean, like I said, I love the whole storyline of The Last of Us. I mean, I finished the game and I wanted so much more, not because the story was bad. I just wanted to play still. I wanted to continue that storyline. And I have not played The Last of Us 2, like I said before, but my understanding is that they made some pretty significant changes with that I don't want to spoil the TV series for those of you that are watching it. So that's why I'm really not trying to touch on that. But I'll probably have to play that before this story continues. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of brings into the point, like you said, as superhero films, do we want to see it frame for frame? And we've talked with Bleach Bro Mitch on this from, the Two Guys in the Dark podcast, that we do want to have scenes that mimic the different, scenes within the comic books. But I don't want the frame for frame. Like, that's just not what I want. And that's where I felt like this went.
I could see that. I will ask you this. So remember, and I'm not saying it's on this level, but remember back in the day, and I brought up Sequest or something like that, right? But remember how it used to, like every TV show would end on that note where it's like the music would come in and you'd see the guy's face and it would go to black and then it would come right back in on that same scene. Yeah. Would you like it to be like that? Or would you like it to be where it's almost that video game-esque moment, like I said, where you can see the guy standing there swaying back and forth, ready for you to move him? Because that's how I felt. And it almost reminded me of that new age nostalgia. Like that's the new age version of that. And that's, I think, what I had a hardest time with. But which one would you prefer?
I don't think I would have preferred either one. Okay. I think for me, I would have wanted to have some sort of side story that is also happening at the same time, that by the end of the episode, it all wraps in together, if that makes sense. And I think that there was that to a certain extent, but it was still the same storyline in the video game. So before we get into more of this talk about video games and movies and stuff, let's take a real quick break and we'll be right back.
In a world filled with COVID and chaos, three dads bring to you a riot of entertainment every hump day.
Hump day! We are Jordan, a.k.a. the Gnome.
Josh, a.k.a. the Dome.
AJ, a.k.a. the Stone.
And together, we're dads on Dayquill.
Between the three of us, we have 10 kids.
That we know about!
We're talking about you, Johnny Six. Sit down, turn up the volume, and crack a cold one as we bring you a glimpse into our dad lives. We break down our weekly events with our dad stories and tons of shout-outs.
Dad Corner!
We bring you dad games. We also cover music, movies, and all things entertainment. Hell, we even bring you the Stone Safe House for off-the-wall references.
Heyo!
So come check us out on your favorite podcast platform, even if you prefer certain platforms that we don't. Yeah, we're talking about you, Google Podcasts.
Meow.
Dad's out.
Welcome back to the Bleach Bros Podcast. I am here with Jake. We've been talking about video games and video game films, specifically the new series The Last of Us on HBO. One of the things I kind of want to transition to here real quick, Jake, is there's been a lot of films that have been based off of video games. We had just made the point. Do we want the video games the movies or the TV series to be accurate from the video game, or do we want them to embellish them just a little bit? With that same thought, I want to ask you, what are some of the worst films or TV series that you have that are based on video games, and what made them the worst?
So prepping for this, I wrote down a bunch because there's actually been a lot, right?
There has.
And I'll go out with this. These are two honorable mentions. And the only reason they're honorable mentions is because they're actually series instead of movies. And it was the Halo series, which was fucking garbage on Paramount Network.
Okay.
And the Resident Evil recent series on Netflix was so bad.
Right.
Those two were terrible. I would love to say the original Super Mario Brothers movie was, but it's that guilty pleasure, like crappy film. Like I think it's like a cult classic now where people actually appreciate it. But what makes a bad video game movie is usually a few things. One, trying to keep too close to the source material. Mm-hmm. Two, trying to make it look like a video game. Because I have one in here that's pretty much you playing the video game and they try to make that into a movie thinking this would be fucking cool.
Right.
But the other one is when you try to make a video game movie out of something that's almost nothing. So like, for example, and this is a book, but Where the Wild Things Are, when you try to turn a 2-hour film from a 12 page book for kids, right?
Okay.
So like Mortal Kombat, right? We all would love to see that, but there's such a grandiose story and so many characters. How do you fucking pull it off? And so my number one worst one of all time is the new Mortal Kombat movie that came out, not the old one, the one that was on HBO Max.
Our hidden episode one?
Yeah. So one thing I was going to say, the episode that we recorded that was probably our greatest episode ever that nobody will ever hear, the Alvin and the Chipmunks bullshit. Because you added a character that didn't belong and his storyline was so bad.
Yeah.
But it just failed on multiple levels. Like, yeah, you finally got the graphics to where they need to be and you have some characters that are really cool, but you failed. Like you tried to do too many stories. Now, mind you, do I want them to just do a movie about Scorpion? No, I don't want a Scorpion movie. I want a Mortal Kombat movie. However, do I want them to do all 90 characters they have? No, that's too much.
Right.
And so it's one of those dream things that'll never happen. Like they'll never be able to pull off a Dragon Ball Z movie. Like how do you pull that off? Right.
Right.
That'd probably be my number one worst. I think number two would be Doom with The Rock. And that's
was The Rock in Doom?
Yeah. And and here's the thing, you wouldn't even know because you know what they did? They filmed it. They filmed it like the game Doom.
Yeah.
And it's a first-person shooter movie because you know what we want to do when we go to the movies? Unless you're in like a 3D motion theater, you know, with the moving chairs and the air that shoots out from under your feet and it stinks like bad vagina and popcorn, you don't need that. Like, you don't need it at all. And so that's it's almost number one, but I think I have so much disdain for that Mortal Kombat movie that's why it's number 2. 3 would be Blood Rain, because I liked the game. I think it was really shitty what they did with it. You also took a really hot character and really just fucked it up. Yeah. I'm not a fan of desizing boobs, and I'm not trying to sound like a sexist, but the minute you desexualize a character or do it in a bad way, it's like, why? Right. It's like, you know, the women want fucking Aquaman to look like Jason Momoa, so we gave it to him, right? But the minute if we make the next Aquaman look like a fucking nerd, you know how much wrath we're going to get for that?
Right.
Or if we make Tomb Raider and take her tits away, everybody's fine. So fuck that. The next one will be Warcraft. I'm going through mine first and I'll let you get to yours, but Warcraft, because I was a huge World of Warcraft nerd.
Okay.
You know that.
Mm-hmm.
I was so fucking excited for this movie. But then again, it's one of those ones that the video game is so vast and so deep. I mean, it spans over 20, 30 years, dude, of gameplay.
Okay.
Like, how do you fit that? Mind you, you can make multiple films, but how do you also follow the Horde?
Right.
Or the Alliance? Or one character or 5? And then it was just badly done, too. And so, I mean, I guess the final one would be Silent Hill. And the only reason is I wanted to love that movie and I couldn't.
Okay.
Like, it's not a terrible film. So that's why it's closer to the bottom of the list. But I expected it to be a better film.
Gotcha.
So I'd put it there.
So I too have a list. I didn't put these in particular order just because they're bad films. Like, bad films are bad films. Do you remember Double Dragon that came out?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that fucking movie.
That one was fucking terrible.
It's like Power Rangers on steroids.
Yes, it was so bad. And then the other one that kind of reminded me of that was the Super Mario Brothers with John Leguizamo and was it Bob Hoskins, the other guy? Mm-hmm. I never played the game. Okay, so take this, not Super Mario. I'm on to another one. I never played the game, but I did see the astonishingly bad Wing Commander with Freddie Prinze Jr. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't.
It's with
movie.
Freddie Prinze Jr. and also it's with Matthew Lillard, and it is a terrible movie. Like, this one might actually make your list of good movies because it's that terrible.
And I love Matthew Lillard.
And Matthew Lillard is definitely your kind of guy. I agree with you. The whole Resident Evil series, I've just not really been into Resident Evil at all, but probably one of the worst movies that I watched was it called Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li, and
that's a pretty bad film.
It had the chick from
it
had the chick from Smallville in there, Lana Lane or whatever. I think she was playing Chun-Li. That was terrible, bro. Terrible.
Can I ask you though? Did you like the original Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
I mean, I think it's comical just because it had the guy who played Gomez Adams. I'm losing his name. In there. Mm-hmm. I think I liked it just because when it first came out, like, that was one of the video games. It was just like the original Mortal Kombat. I think when those two first came out, we were kids. I liked them because it was video games came to life. If I look back at them now, I don't know that I could watch them.
Oh, they're garbage films, but it's that nostalgia thing for us. It was age,
right? And
that was the epitome of the time,
right?
It was the ending era of macho, like,
right.
I mean, that's the end of Jean-Claude Van Damme's career, essentially.
Well, and the name just came back to me. So before Ben's yelling at his radio, it's Raul Julia. I remember in the Street Fighter they actually had in memory of Raul Julia because I think he died after filming that one, but. Yeah, so Raul Julia was Gomez Adams, but he was also the Russian guy in Street Fighter. What's his name? The guy that dresses in all red.
Oh, Bison.
Bison. Yeah, he played Bison.
The main bad.
Yeah,
Bison.
Yeah, he was the main bad
General
guy.
Bison.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think that those are definitely some video games that should have never made the big screen. But to get into our Everlasting segment. Right. So we've done Everlasting Jukebox. We've done the Everlasting Bookshelf. We've done the Everlasting Movie Reel. And now we're going to bring back the Everlasting Game Console. I want you to talk to me, Jake, and we'll go back and forth about video games that should be a film or should be a series. It can be either or. And I'm kind of curious what your list is, because I do have a list myself. I do have a couple honorable mentions, but I'm curious to see what, if we're doing a game console, we're saying this video game would be a great film or a great series. What do you got?
Honorable mentions always first, right?
Yep.
And the two are actually almost in the same vein. And
Okay.
the reason is I don't know if you could really make films around this without overwriting. If
Okay.
that makes sense. So the first one would be Mega Man.
Okay.
I think I'm not denying the Mega Man story is not deep, but it's one of those things like, can we really make that character look and come to life without doing it CGI or anime or animation?
Right.
Two, is the story deep enough in a surreal sense that you believe it and want to follow it? Because you know me, like you,
Right.
I did not like Ready Player One. I loved that fucking book. I also have not watched Alita Battle Angel, even though you've recommended it multiple times, because there's too much CGI for me. Like
Okay.
it gets to a point where it's overdone.
Okay.
So that's it. The other one would be Metroid Prime, and the same thing. It's almost the same character, but Samus is a girl. Same type of suit, shoot a blaster out of the front of hand. But how much story do you overwrite to make it work?
Right.
I understand that we've had more games, and Mega Man has a ton of them, and Samus and Metroid Prime and all that have had multiple games, and there's a lot of story that you can develop from. However, essentially, it's go in, wear a suit, shoot aliens or bad guys, get out. Can you develop a story that's cool enough and not overly done Michael Bay-esque Hollywood and make
Sure.
it right? And so
Sure.
that's why they're honorable mentions, because I love both characters. I would love to see it. But are we going to get Sonic the Hedgehog where it's campy and for kids? Or are we going to get, the Last of Us where it's very deep and
Right.
very heavy and still video game-esque, but, done well? What are your honorable mentions?
So one of them is Half-Life. So I played Half-Life on the Xbox. It's a first-person shooter game, basically. That one of the things that I liked about Half-Life was that you've got not only the first-person shooter, but you actually have like the background stories of these characters that I think would be really good. I think it would really depend on casting if it would work. But I do have this as an honorable mention because I do feel like this one might be a little bit more tough to get off the ground. I think that you would have to have some really creative writing. With today's Hollywood, I just don't know that it would ever be picked up. So
Right.
that's why that's there. The other honorable mention that I have here, and the reason why it's honorable mention is because it's going to be so vast that I don't know that it can be done. Grand Theft Auto. I would love to see some sort of Grand Theft Auto something or another, but my fear is that it would end up being like a Hitman film, where the Hitman movie came out and, Hitman, the movie was what it was for, it was decent, but it wasn't great. And I just kind of feel like the story and the world, because the world is so big of Grand Theft Auto, and because there's so many potential characters within that world, that it very well could make an issue trying to put to film.
Now we've seen it with The Last of Us, right? Where real world with a little bit of otherworldly stuff
Right.
into play. Do you feel Grand Theft Auto's too regular world based to actually make a movie that doesn't make you think it's just a Hollywood? Like here, okay, what I mean by that is Bad Boys, you could put Grand Theft Auto on the name, right?
Sure.
And you could almost see that it's
Like
a Grand Theft Auto movie,
Fast
right?
and Furious, San Andreas, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel that it's too down to earth in the sense that it would just be like any other movie that Hollywood writes?
Yes. But if they were to do it correctly, I think that I would really like to see that. You can have it set around a mob family. You can have, now we're adding things into it, right? So there would really have to be some sort of pivotal storyline that you're making this around where the Grand Theft Auto video game takes place. So I do agree with you there that it would be very difficult to make. And that's also why it would be in my honorable mentions, because I would like to see something of that done and have that be on screen where it actually does show that sort of Grand Theft Auto-esque storyline happening.
See, and I agree with you that I would like to see it. I loved playing Grand Theft Auto games, but I just feel like, one, there'd be those fanboys that want to see you pull over and beat a hooker up with a bat.
Right.
And steal her money. And I think, and the crappy thing is I can already see it now Like the Easter eggs would be like the radio would be the same radio that you got in Grand Theft Auto 3, the big one for us, right?
Yeah.
I can't see that film coming to life without thinking of other films that already exist that are so real life.
Right. Exactly.
The rest of my list is in order. I don't know if yours is.
Mine's in order as well.
With number 5, I'll do this. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, okay. I didn't even think about that one.
And here's why. They are supposed to be making a film. They've been working on it for years. I think Blumhouse is supposed to be working on it. They show me animatronics. Now, I also know that, and I can't remember the name, and don't fuck you, Ben, if you call me out, but there is a Nicolas Cage film where he actually is in like a old Chuck E. Cheese's with horror animatronic stuff. That's pretty much a ripoff of this.
Right.
But I liked playing the game. It had a huge mass following. I think it really helped out YouTubers for a certain amount of years. Like that was the number one game to watch people like go game playthroughs. And I never watched through gameplays until that game came out. And I thought it was awesome because it was one of those games I didn't need to play it. I just wanted to watch other people react to it. Right.
Right.
I think it could be a fun movie because there actually is the cool thing about that. I don't know if you know this, but the designer of that game hides Easter eggs in the code.
Oh, okay.
And fans would actually find out things. And then he came out with the books, and there's a lot that goes into it, the lore. But the thing is, they're sort of connected, but not. But it's not so vast. Like it's vast, but not so vast to that where it's gotten out of hand now, where you couldn't like hone it in.
Sure.
And I think it actually could be a really cool thing because it would give the fans of horror that. It would give the fans of, you know, people that are furries or whatever or into that type of shit. They would get those characters. But I think it could be a fun movie that's done well. You get the right actor that doesn't need to be a huge name, and you make it more about the horror aspect and the story rather than the people in it.
Sure.
And it could be a great film. It's not the top of my list because is it the greatest video game ever? No. Did it have a huge following? Yeah. Could it do well? It could. The fear is, though, too, it's horror and it's campy.
Right.
And is it overdone? And is it more about the kill count than the character?
Right. No, I could definitely see that. I can definitely see that. Well, my number 5 is actually made by Rockstar Games. So it feels like Grand Theft Auto a little bit, but it's the game Bully. Did you ever play that one?
No, I have not.
So basically, Bully is about this school called Bulworth Academy, and you're the main character, you're the protagonist, but you have to stand up to bullies. You get picked on by teachers. You have the ability to play pranks. You're basically navigating the school and going through these different things. But of course, the whole point of this is that you're standing up to those within the school ranks, and of course, you're getting a little vulgar too. So I do think that this could be something where you're having this coming of age story of this kid that maybe he transfers to a new school. You can change some of the details around about it, but now you create this academy very similar to like the new Wednesday Addams Academy, where they're doing that with the Netflix show. And you're focusing solely on the main character, the protagonist, but you're also involving all these different storylines. I think that this one would be better as a series than it would be a film. But I wouldn't want it to be like a UPN or a CW. I would want it very much to be like a dark Netflix or a dark Hulu or even like an HBO series. I think that it would be done very well on there. You can get into some vulgarities. You can get into some stigmas. Maybe start talking about things like suicide or teen sex or some of those things that you can display to a certain level, right? But you're also making the academy and the protagonist the main part of the storyline. So I think that would be a good one, and that's why it's my number 5.
Number 4 is BioShock.
Oh, that's my number 4.
Great game. Great, yeah. No, I figure we were close. And here's the thing. When I was writing my list, it came down to that or Amnesia, that whole series.
Okay.
But I already went with the horror and survival games are different in,
right.
You're surviving. You're not. It's just you stressing out the whole damn game. BioShock is a fucking killer story.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into it. I know it's been announced that they're going to do this movie, but I feel like it's in Hollywood hell, like Akira. It'll never happen.
Sure.
And maybe it will. And by the time it actually does, it'll be like the Mayweather Pacquiao fight. It's 5 years too late and nobody cares anymore. And it's going to be overdone and bad. And it went through 5 writers and 6 scripts and 20 cast members and too much money. And they had to cut somewhere. And I feel like that's what will happen with BioShock. But BioShock is such a good game. It's such a good story. There's so much you can do with it too. It's one of those ones that has such a deep, rich story that you can develop on top of that. And I don't think anybody would be mad.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you here. We're talking the same language. BioShock just has an epic storyline, right? You've got this underwater society. You've got, the capitalist, ruthless guy in there. I mean, you've got a whole lot of different social things that you can kind of talk about, but you can also build this world. And so I'm with you there. My number 4, totally, you took it from me. So I think with that, I'm going to skip you real quick. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to number 3. I'm going to put Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if you've played any of the Red Deads.
I did. I played the first one.
Okay. 2 is such a better storyline. It has so much, just from a gameplay thing, it has a lot better camera angles. So it just looks so much better than the first one. But I think in a world where you're talking about having Yellowstone, having Django Unchained, having, a lot of like Godless on Netflix, where you're talking about some of these Western worlds that you're able to build, I think that this would not only take place now as far as, being able to capitalize on the moment, but you're also taking a killer storyline and being able to implement it in Hollywood film. I do think that this one would be more of a film, but very well could be a film series as opposed to a television series or a limited series, just because of the style of the storytelling. But I do think that you could end up with a Red Dead trilogy, or you could end up with a Red Dead type of world like that. So Red Dead 2 is my number 3.
So I want to preface with one thing, that we're actually going with movies here, because there are things like BioShock, right? Could be also a great fucking series. And I think we're getting into that world where series are sometimes better. Limited series is one of my new favorite things.
Oh,
it's like a
too.
movie that's just, on steroids, where it's 10 hours long instead of 2, and you're not sitting through this Snyder cut. But I agree with you in the point. I've never played Red Dead 2, and I'll take your word for it that it's a better game, because I liked Red Dead Redemption. It almost made my list, because I love Westerns.
Yep.
But I didn't feel the storyline was strong enough to make a movie where I felt like, okay, I was a guy and I went through it, and
right.
And that's why it didn't make the list. And I felt like it was almost that argument that I was making with Mega Man and Metroid Prime, in the sense, like, is it deep enough to not just be, or the Grand Theft Auto thing too, is it deep enough to be just not another fucking Western with that, but all you did was give that guy a name and his look.
Right. Exactly.
My next one is a stretch for me, but I would love to see it happen in the right way, and it's God of War, and I don't care which one it fucking is.
I think that there's talks currently. So that almost made my list. That one almost made my list, but I left it off the list because I think there's talks currently that they're trying to make it a film or a TV series, and that's the only reason I left it off. But I agree with you; it would be phenomenal.
It'd be phenomenal, and I want to follow Kratos, and I want to see all that, and there's fears with it. It's like, I would love to, and I'll be upfront. When I was making this list, I was going through types of video games I play and which ones I want to see. And I was being greedy. Like, I want this genre. I want this genre. I want this genre. I'm not going with the same one across the board to not be boring, but also like, I want to see, like, an epic thing. And I did a theory of 2, almost like I wrote them next to each other and I circled which one was better. Like, I did this or Elder Scrolls.
Right.
And which one do I want to see? I would rather see God of War than Elder Scrolls, because there's enough Elder Scrolls-esque shit out there.
Right.
And God of War, I think, is more honed in with a character, which god you pick and which storyline, but there's still a more development there, right?
Sure.
And that'd be the main reason. There's not much more to it, rather than it would just be fucking fun to see that guy beat the shit out of giant cyclopses or whatever. And I think you have a deep enough storyline to make it entertaining. But also, here's the thing. That's a fallback movie for Hollywood in this sense. Even if they fuck it up, and you give me some killer action scenes and Michael Bay the fuck out of it, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I paid my $5 for popcorn. I paid my $12 for a ticket. I sat there and I got, my action off. And that's all I need. That's that type of movie. I don't need it to get everything right. I just need to see him beat the shit out of a Kraken, have a sword, have his tattoos, do everything right, and I go home. And do I need 5 films of it? No.
Who are you casting as Kratos?
I have no fucking idea. Back in the day, I'd probably do David Bautista. I would do, or Brock. All I want is a big ripped dude that I don't give a shit if he gives the lines correctly or not. Like,
yeah. Probably if it was 15 years ago, I'd want Triple H. Just because, I just think that he would be great. So, yeah, no, I would love to see that. My number 2 is, it's stupid. It's stupid because in the same manner that I'm complaining about The Last of Us, I would probably complain about this too. But for Star Wars people who don't play video games, I want Star Wars Fallen Order to be a movie.
Okay.
It is such a great storyline, excellent gameplay. The way that Vader's in there, because Vader shocked me that he was in there. He's in the very last level. the way that you actually travel to all these different worlds, it is open world format to a certain extent, but such a great storyline. When you start to tie in some of the new properties like Obi-Wan or like The Mandalorian or some of these that are within the same time frame, you can actually see where there's Easter eggs in those shows that come from Fallen Order. And so I just thoroughly appreciated it. I probably would have the same disappointment, like I said, about The Last of Us, because you would have to do a scene for scene, shot for shot type film to be able to get the whole story. But it's phenomenal, and so that's my number 2.
I could see that. That would be fun. I think your list is sort of like mine, where it's like I played these games, I liked them. I'm trying to go for multiple genres here. My next one was in the rebirth of the 8-bit revolution. I don't know if you've ever played Undertale.
I have not.
Oh, have you heard of Undertale?
I have not. No.
So Undertale is one of those games that, I mean, I guess for, the super computer nerd I was in the sense, right? Like, it was a game that came out of nowhere, right? It's a game that's played. It has, I think, I don't know how many. I'm going to just say like 380 endings, right?
Okay.
Based on how you play. And the creator of the video game essentially made this game to show you that you can get through a video game not fighting.
Okay.
Also, you can get through by fighting. So the whole opening act is you versus a flower, and it's an act, right?
Okay.
Like to see how you react. And depending on how that one scene goes, dictates the rest of the damn story. But I mean, every interaction you have dictates the story.
Sure.
Like choose your own adventure.
Sure.
But the storyline is so fucking good. And the funny thing is, there's so many theories now that it's connected to Earthbound, which is one of the greatest SNES games ever, that is connected to a lot of those other games. But, it's about this whole underworld and life and death and what the meaning of life is and how you should act towards people. And should you fight? Should you not? Is there times to fight? Is there times to like react a certain way? And then, it's just also fun gameplay. Like you got to dodge bullets and do all these other things. But
sure.
There's so many good, fun fucking characters. And the cool part is for our generation, because our generation fell in love with it the most when it came out. I knew my daughters because, younger kids are into games, but also it was the nostalgia, as I said, of the 8-bit revolution again. Of the music was awesome. The soundtrack's great. The graphics reminded you of playing an old Nintendo or SNES game. The gameplay was fun, but also the fact that there were so many endings and no matter what you did, it changed how the game was played, made it enjoyable. That there are wrong answers and you could die, but there also were no wrong answers, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
And that, I think, also makes it so you can have the game, the movie be so much. The biggest issue I have with that B word is, let's say you make it and they do sort of like, did you ever watch Black Mirror?
I never did get into Black Mirror.
Okay. So Black Mirror made a movie after they did the series called Bandersnatch, even though a new, I guess, season's going to come out or whatever. And Bandersnatch was the first one on Netflix where you chose your own adventure. So you would click scenes of how you wanted them to go. And that dictated how the movie went. Now, mind you, I guess there was like, don't quote me on this either, but 15 endings, right? So if you chose this, you could go to these things and then it would eventually like spread out to where you could go with the movie, right? And so you had to watch it like tons of times to get through all of them. And so the same thing with this game. Well, then it turned into one of those things where people just started watching on the internet because who has time to make 400 fucking endings, right?
Right.
But it's awesome. It's one of those things. So that's why it makes that list. But it was just also, if you get a chance, even just listen to the music, it's fucking stellar, dude.
Okay. So I don't know where you're going with your number 1, but I'm curious. So I'm going to throw this back over to you.
We're the same. I'm going to tell you right now, we're the same.
Booger Man.
Oh, fuck you, no.
Okay, because mine's Booger Man.
Is it really?
Yes.
I thought you were fucking with me.
No, I want it to be a animated film, surprisingly enough. And I want them to do an actual Booger Man. And maybe he can even cross over with Earthworm Jim. Like, I'm all about that. Like, I would actually watch the animated film. But I want it to be adult in nature. I don't want it to be kid friendly. Not that it needs to be perverted or over the top or anything like that, but I do want it geared toward adults, and I want it to be grotesque. I want the boogers. I want the snot. I want the farts. I want all of that sort of stuff in there, but I want it to be dark and gritty. I think that would be that would be amazing. I don't want it to be Ren and Stimpy. I want it to be this dark, gritty, almost like the Mask of the Phantasm type thing, where it's, you know, you have this great storyline, but you also have this character, Booger Man, who you're establishing his world, and that, to me, that would be number one.
I just had a thought in my brain that when we see each other, we need to make a live action Booger Man film of you being Booger Man.
Totally about that. I
also think that would be so, just on a shitty my camera, and just make it and release it on YouTube and just Bleach Bros presents Booger Man, just cause.
Oh yeah,
I think it would just
that would be great.
Get 1 million fucking followers.
But we do, if we do that, we actually have to film it on a Motorola Razor. Like
exactly,
from
like, we got to make it as
05.
crappy as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, there's just cut scenes where it's just your butt and you fart.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want in this film. Zelda.
Oh, I see. Yeah, Zelda would be really, really good.
Zelda's
really
always been number one. And here's the reason. It's the dream. It's the dream game that we all love, and everybody has their own incantation. The other great thing about Zelda is there is one for every generation. My daughter's playing Breath of the Wild right now, right? Mm-hmm. I remember playing the original one. My favorite is Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask is up there. I mean, that was the peak for us, right? But I mean, there's people that'll argue with us that the original on NES is the greatest one of all time. And there are people, I mean, the only one I think that never will get love is Link 2, right? Or Zelda 2, whatever it is. You know, that Zelda. Link's...
I know which one you're talking about.
There's a sequel, and it's garbage as hell. I have it on my regular NES console, and it's so bad. It's when they were trying to do a side scroller instead of the actual over the top thing with the in-world adventure. But if you could get Zelda right, you know how great that would be, how long you can make that a series, you can make that a movie, you can make that a trilogy, you could call the trilogy the Triforce, and people would buy fucking in, dude.
Do you want it to be live action or animated?
Yeah. Oh, I want it live action. If you do anime, you're pretty much copying out, in my opinion, that you're making a video game you took all the cutscenes and made a movie out of it.
Right.
And you've seen that, like Batman Arkham Asylum, right? You can watch all the cutscenes on YouTube and it's awesome. It's great. But that's how I'd feel if you did that with Zelda. I think if you could do it right, it would be one of the greatest outcomes for a movie. The problem is, I think Hollywood fears it because they know they have to live that's like that holy grail, right? Like you have to live up for that. Like if you do Halo wrong, people are like, well, it's a first person shooter. Like, yeah, we got them wrong. We can move on. We fucked up Booger Man. Who really fucking cares, right? But you get somebody like Zelda, and it's like, you really have to get this done right. And you have to like appease, because the people that are into that lore are heavy, not just like video game people that like Mario. They're like heavy in depth, in love.
I think if you were to do a Zelda, I think that you would have to do either a series where you're trying to do kind of like what they're trying to do with The Witcher right now, or you would have to film it in the same fashion that they did Lord of the Rings, where it's all filmed at once. And then have multiple movies that way, which I think that both require a huge financial thing. And I think that you're right, unless you have the right studio with the right, visionary at the helm with the right cast, you're probably not going to find that. And that's really why Zelda was left off my list, because I don't even know where to start with it, to be honest with you. And that was kind of what the ominous part of Zelda was. But I do think that Zelda, the story of Zelda is amazing. And so to be able to see that live action or even animated, like I know I'm not really into animated films, but I think that it would just be amazing.
Well, it makes me laugh because you brought up Lord of the Rings, right? And then I'm thinking like back in the day, right? Remember when people still do it, but remember when they do those fake movie trailers? Mm-hmm. Like you could take Orlando Bloom's scenes from Lord of the Rings and make a Zelda trailer out of it.
For sure.
Right? He could be Link. And that would have been a pretty decent casting back then. I'm not saying I love it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Right.
I think that's the hardest thing too, is who do you cast as Link? Like, who do you bring in that's going to be able to carry that? And that's got to be, in my opinion, that's got to be a move where you bring in like a new Spider-Man of an unknown, right? Instead of casting something that's so big that, like Harry Potter, I know you've never watched them, but you bring him in and it's like he is Harry Potter.
Right.
Mind you, it's a death sentence and a curse almost for the actor that takes it, right? Like he'll forever in his life be known as Link, but also, is that always a bad thing?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, Johnny Drama taught us it. You could just yell out Viking quotes all day and you're happy.
Victory! I love it. Well, man, let's take a minute and let's just shout out some of our Patreon people. Thanks to Josh, Jordan, Travis, Aaron, AJ, Mike, and our newest member, Carlos. Really appreciate your guys' buy-in into our product that we're putting out. I hope that you're enjoying it. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, we do release 2 additional episodes per month and extras. So visit us on Patreon /Bleach Bros Pod. Sign up. Starts at $3, $7, or $20. The $20 also offers you some merch. Make sure to check out our website, bleachbros.com. We've got some fun stuff in there. It's still under construction, but we've got some fun stuff in there, including our sticker map. So make sure to check out where Sal has been. And with that, Jake, what do you got for me?
Thanks for all the dirty talk. Come back and get sanitized. If you're a fan of our show, be sure to check out this one to stay sanitized.
Hey everyone, it's Gnome from the Hateful Gnomes Music Hut. I'm here with my good buddy, Jake the Hater, and we're bringing you a bi-weekly music podcast for all your heavy metal needs. Tell them about it, Jake.
We are here to have our horns up, and we are staying heavy. That is right. Even B-Word is producing behind the scenes, turning his mic off. But you know what? We are going to give the fans something bigger, badder, and fucking bolder. Tune in bi-weekly, a Spreaker Prime podcast.